is a pleasure and it is a treat to be with you here today. I have to say, like these events have taken on an enormous kind of networking shape, and we're all here together to just network. As we are being spammed by more and more email, you can't click on a text message. You got to be careful. WhatsApp, like everything is under stress because intelligent systems are tracking us, tracing us, and knowing where to find us, and catches at our weakest point in time, right? When you're expecting a UPS package or a fast shipment package, for example, that link you can't click on any longer. And as a result, these groups of these communities that we're part of here today, set up by James and Sales Confidence, are the ones actually where the action takes place. Well, today I'm going to share with you a number of insights. It's going to build on what you have seen in the past, and I'm going to share this with you, and it's going to call, the concept is called the Revenue Factory. It will combine a number of the things that that James spoke about: the kindness, productivity, data-driven, and where we are going. What I'm trying to set the stage for you is where we are going next. Okay, now let's start at the beginning. Why not, right? And the beginning, what I'm going to point back to is about 2020. What we noticed in 2020 is, in those early days of the pandemic, how SaaS performed. What we saw is that the cloud infrastructure, the applications, and the recurring revenue model all performed admirably. They delivered. It was fantastic. People all around the world could Zoom with each other, could WebEx with each other, could Google Chat with each other. Everybody was able to to be involved. I'm talking about online communities. I'm talking about schools. I'm talking about governments, employees. I'm talking about preachers and their followers. Everybody could communicate. Grandma, grandpa, everybody was on, and everybody could afford it. At that point in time, early to 2020, SaaS absolutely, utterly killed it. It was fantastic. Absolutely, hands down, it all worked. And then, a few years later, suddenly things changed. Now, what I'm going to introduce today is, and I'm going to weave these three trends in. I'm going to talk about how the new SaaS is vertical, the disruptive technologies such as chat, and revived methodologies such as product-led growth. New markets are vertical SaaS. And what is vertical SaaS? Quick setting the stage, where previously when a company went out and said hey, I'm going to become a SaaS company like a CRM, they wanted to dominate the very global market of CRM, or the very global market of email marketing, and so on and so forth. Today, vertical SaaS, rather than focusing on an overall market, they're focusing more vertically, but includes all solutions. So IDEX, IDEXX, is a CRM for animals, for example. Yes, it is for veterinarians who are using that in order to log animals in their system, the same way that a CRM system would log an opportunity. That is a very vertical market, and that vertical SaaS is going to grow tremendously over the next years. As a result, valuations may change, right? Because becoming a global CRM manufacturer may be different than becoming a veterinarian focus. But as you will see, and if you look at companies like IDEX, they are extraordinarily successful. They're often building, in case of IDEX, they are also building the sampling equipment. If you look, for example, at animals can't talk. And so the way they communicate their health is through fluid samples. Those fluid samples and the integration, how IDEX integrates those fluid samples in real time with the CRM, is an example, right? Blood sample comes in, is registered, and is immediately entered in the CRM system, and then, processed. That's a very vertical SaaS system. Those systems are all driven around impact, as we'll see. Disruptive technology like ChatGPT, per today, we're looking at it as a cost reduction methodology, and revived methodologies. And I say revived, PLG has been around for a decade or longer, people. It is not new. And for sure, I would not like to see it to be discussing it today. Neither is it a sales methodology nor a marketing campaign, right? PLG is an overall strategy, product go-to-market strategy. So taking that into account, I'm going to weave those stories in. Now, where I'm going to start, and I'll let some of you read this, but the problem that we have seen is that over the past decade, we entered the golden age of SaaS. And I marked that golden age really at the beginning with Mark Andreessen's talk and called Software is Going to Eat the World. And that came out on August 20, 2012. Okay, that's when that came out. An article called Software is Eating the World. Many of us are all very super familiar with that. That decade of that golden age of SaaS ended right around December 2021, when DocuSign was one of the first big companies that toppled and started to feel the pain that the market was experiencing. Now, why did all this happen? In the beginning, during those golden age, money was cheap. And when money was cheap, VCs, venture capitalists, PE firms could use that money to fund their companies. And as a result, as a resolution of the entire system, we started to look at a growth at any and all cost. When money got expensive, that all changed. The moment in time that the money flow started to change, suddenly we couldn't say any longer grow at any cost. And this is where we are today. We now see that those companies, many companies, have been unable to change that methodology up to this point. And as a result, the burn rate is still very high. As the burn rate is high, if you're a startup, you're running through your funds, you're running your cash down low, you're running your bank account low, and now you're going to look out for funding. That ain't a pleasant situation, right? And that is where we're at today. We call this the sweet spot in the eye of the storm. We are right here, right now. Over summer, this is all taking place and it's happening as we see all around us. But this is that moment in time. What we now have to do as an industry, we have to go like, where are we going from here? Okay, like we cannot cost cut our way to growth. This is a statement you hear we say a couple of times. Well, with that, as James said, who am I to speak to you about this? Well, my name is Jacco van der Kooij. I'm the founder of Winning by Design. I started this company in 2012, and we are 100% focused on B2B, recurring revenue, primarily SaaS solutions, but we're looking 100% at the go-to market function. If you have a company, you split it in two, those who are creating product and those who are selling product. The GTM part is all those involved with customer interactions. We offer products and services, and many of you are familiar with that. We have a YouTube channel where we provide all our content and so on and so forth. Today, I'm going to take you through this agenda that you see down here. In order for you to understand what we need to do next, I need us all to go back to the origins of growth. I need you to feel it where it went wrong. I mean, like if we're talking about the end of a decade, we need to start a new decade, right? Well, we better start off on the right foot. I'm going to talk to you about the concept of a revenue factory, what the machines are inside that factory and how they work. What are the actual field results we have seen over the past 6 months that are 100% working, that we highly recommend. The problems are not that we don't know what needs to be done. The problems are that people are not doing what we're recommending they need to be doing, and that most people keep in the cost-cutting center. And that's the problem we need to overcome. We need to stop cost-cutting. We need to move over to the next phase. And then we're going to talk about deployment. How do you deploy this yourself? If you are looking at something like this, where would you start, obviously? That is the start of it. Now, I'm going to obviously start with the origins of growth. What you'll see here at the bottom, this is where we are currently in. We are in this like madness of activity. We're all attending these events. We're hearing so many ideas of what like in this case, I'm a talking head here in front of you. And all this stress and this like whole, well, we're going to bring it back to the top. We're going to go back to the pure origins, as crisp and clean as it is. And from there, we're going to rebuild up where revenue comes from. And we're going to rebuild it and structure it to the point that we actually can build it the proper way, because that is what is needed. And we're going to leverage everything that's worked. We're not going to like revolutionize. 90% of this you already know. You already know how to use it. We just need to take a brief moment and build it all the way back up. That's where I'm going to start. So what you see here is a 3-year revenue of a perpetual sales motion. Perpetual sales motion is the motion I grew up in. Many of you may have or know those days. We're talking about like the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s, when you're selling routers, when you're selling perpetual software that is submitted to you on a bunch of disks. Like you would get like this booklet with 20 discs in it, like CD-ROMs, right? Before there was disc, but then eventually it ended up being the CD-ROMs. We called it shelfware because as a CTO or you would have this CISO, you would have this on your shelf. You have this like big package, 20 discs. The problem with that, or how that went, is you actually sold that. And, like if you see here in year one, let's say that number here is $1 million, you would sell $1 million worth of software. But if you enter year two, you have to start pretty much near zero again. And then you have to restart everything over again because there was no recurring revenue. You had to pay all this up front, right? And you get this sawtooth that you see down here. The problem with this is as follows. And I want you to think about this. If you do $10 million down here, and you want to do $20 million the next year, folks, you got to do twice as much in sales. You can't say, oh, I already have 10. You have nothing because you started at zero. So the next year, you need to go and sell $20 million, double. And the following year, in this case, and using this example, if I just extrapolate that, I need to do 30 million. And as a result, this growth at any and all costs stems from this. This has been a very long way of doing it. I was raised in that way. You always have to sell more, sell bigger, sell longer, sell 4 days on the road, right? That's where you get that sawtooth from. I want you to see what happens when I'm turning this into recurring revenue. As simple as this is, and I know all of you go like, yeah, I already know that. Just follow me for a second because you're going to go in a second, you're going to see where we made the wrong turn. What we see down here is if I now want to sell recurring revenue, that blue thing, called that $10 million, if you see, and I sell it up, and I sell it up, and I sell it up, notice what is happening there, right? Notice that suddenly what is happening, that blue bar compared to the previous bar is not the same. Look at that. Like down here, I got a double and triple. I have the same top line number down here, but because of the 100% retention, aka the 100% renewal, I keep selling the same amount. And so the same sales team keeps doing the same thing, and yet I am growing from the same 10 to 20 to $30 million. Why is that? Because I have now retention, right? Retention is coming in. If I, however, keep and hire that former sales VP from a perpetual revenue company, perpetual software company, and I bring that VP of sales in, and that VP of sales says, okay, let's go. And I start having that triple and quadruple my sales, right? I keep that same mindset, hiring more people, set up an SDR, AE sales organization, go. What you now see is we're starting to see that pretty beautiful curvature, which you recognize as an exponential growth curve. Where does that come from? As you'll see, retention starts to play a bigger role. Now, if I can retain, I can upsell. So if I now add expansion to that, I go even further, you're going to see that this ramp is going even faster. And that is what we know as the hypergrowth curve. I want you to see what is written at the top of this slide. It says the origins of growth. And then I want you to see what the three sources are: retention, expansion, and acquisition. Three sources of growth. We don't look at retention as a source of growth, and that's where we went off. Folks, if you want a simple takeaway from today, we're growing, actually, why not? We're growing from the acquisition at any and all cost, growth at any and all cost. We're going to retention at any and all cost, grow at any and all cost. That's the mindset that you see here. I'm going to depict this by putting this into a real practical example. This is a real use case story. This is one of the Winning by Design customers that we've worked on, that we've helped over the years. And I want you to see how this revenue grew. So at the top, we're going to see 2013, first year, nothing to retain yet, nothing to expand yet, brings in $1 million, 0.9, but you get the idea, right? Total, this is all in millions of dollars. $900,000 is the total for the first line. That second line, we now see carry over. We lose some due to churn. We win a little bit in expansion back, and we acquire a new group of customers twice as fast, almost 3 times as fast. We're going twice as fast. So look at that. We're now going from 0.9 to $2.8 million at the back end, right? Look how this grows. Digest this. Orient yourself. I see the retention. I see the expansion. I see the new acquisition coming. Then what I'm doing, I'm filling out this table. Here we go. Year after year. Again, real customer, real data. This is used, I use the blue line so that we can clearly follow our eyes, trace our eyes, right? Now, what you're going to see, if I look at the back end, then you see that typical triple, double, double behavior. I go from 0.9 to 2.8, triple in that 2013 to 2014. I go triple pretty much, 2.8 to 8.7, right? And then you see the double nature occur, right? See how that occurred? That happened to the total. Everybody goes like, yeah, I see this all the time. I've heard about it. Like, this is it. And if you look at that in 2015, 2016, this was the norm. This was 17, 18, this T2D3 style that was by Agraval, I believe, that brought this up. Yeah, like literally this was the common norm. This is how you got unicorn status, right? Because you see at the bottom, at about 8 to 9 years, at 8 years, 2020, you hit the 93.3, you're running off a 15x multiple, 10 to 15x multiple, voila, which is French for there you have it, which is best pronounced with a French accent, voila, and there we have it. We are a unicorn. And you know, like nothing wrong with this. This is fantastic, right? I just want you to understand what just happened, because what most of us have designed the company around is that we designed the company around that acquisition growth. Because if you see down here, and I'll bring it up there. Oh, no, let's not do that. If you see down here, let's go back on that there you go. That acquisition part, look how it grows, 0.9, 1.8, 5.8. Oh my God. This is the point in time when that acquisition goes from 1.9 to 5.8. That's when the sales team kicked in, right? They hired the sales team right in that previous year, became effective, boom, 5.8. Company's very excited, starts growing in and so on. And then the next year, that number goes to 6.5. This is where the company suddenly starts to figure out like they probably need a new CRO or new VP of sales. The previous VP of sales is on their 18 months, 24-month cycle and is being rotated out. This is what's happening. But now I want you to look at what is happening here at the left. Look at what is happening with retention. 8 million, 40 million, 25. Look how fast that is growing. What you'll see here is that there's a switch. And this switch in time, historically, companies have had a very hard time to adjust to. We at Winning by Design are working with scale-ups that are in 100, 400, 500, up to $7, $8 billion in revenue. They have still not realized the practical issues that are involved in this shift. This lack of this shift has meant that the grow at any and all cost has essentially been the mindset of acquire at any and all cost, where true growth is coming from retention. Okay? Clear? Hang tight. You go like, start to see it. Okay. Now, what you see here below is that expansion starts to kick in. What is more importantly, and what becomes even clearer, is when I put these numbers into a graph. What we see here is those same three graphs. Acquisition is the blue line. And down here, you see that, you see it go up, acquisition takes off. But then, and this is very normal, acquisition starts to flatten out a little bit. It's really hard to keep acquiring at that triple, double rate. So you start to see that acquisition slows down a little bit, which in this case was a competitive market pressure on this client. And it's the reason why they brought us in, right? What you'll see there is expansion starts to take off. And normally when you add expansion and acquisition, you will see that continued growth curve of, hey, we're getting more, we're winning more and more business. What often we do not see, what we forget to see, is what does the growth curve of retention looks like? Folks, and I keep saying it, retention, I'm treating it as growth, the same way I treat acquisition, the same way I treat expansion. All three are equally important. What do we see? We see that around 2016, retention starts to bring in more revenue than acquisition. What you also can see is if you would extrapolate the expansion forward, is that, like that was up to 2022, add a few more years, and you can anticipate that expansion will overcome retention, will overcome acquisition, will also surpass. But look at that curve. You see that curve of retention? Look at that. That, folks, is an exponential growth curve. That exponential growth curve is what this entire machine is built on. This entire recurring revenue machinery is built on that pink exponential growth curve. And what most companies have built their company and their growth around is around the blue curve, which is super important. which is not that I'm trying to say stop doing that. You need both. You need both, and both are equally important. Now, in summary, if I summarize what we see down here, we see that there's not one, but multiple sources of revenue growth. And in this case, we saw 3. Later on, you'll see we can separate acquisition and upsell and cross-sell and stuff like that. I'll leave that for the future. Not one, but multiple sources of revenue growth. Point number 2, recurring revenue comes from establishing recurring impact. All these curves, if we see that pink curve, if you do not deliver the impact that the customer wants, the customer will not renew. As you have heard me say on many occasions, recurring impact is the origins of growth. Recurring revenue is the result of recurring impact. It's the first principle of recurring revenue growth, is that recurring revenue is the result of recurring impact. No recurring impact, no recurring revenue. As simple as that. Acquisition also is dependent on recurring impact. You need to deliver to the customer what you have promised. So acquisition also recurring impact. If you do not deliver the promise, customer will stop buying. The word gets around. You're not delivering. Acquisition goes on. And of course, expansion, they're not going to expand. All these are based fundamentally, if you do not deliver what you have promised or what you are promising, then the customer will not come back. And all these 3 are based on nonlinear growth. We see in all of them, they have a curvature, they flow. It's not a straight line. It's a curvature. That straight line, that curvature, I'm going to explain now. Because this curve that you see down here is the fundament, it's the core of this engine. This is how this machine runs. This is where we often, if you may say like, Jacco, why is this so important? Well, look, most salespeople, if you ask, say like, hey, you need to double the revenue. What do you need from the organization? They're going to say, I need twice as many leads, right? I need twice as many people. That's not curvature. That's linear thinking, okay? If I say I want to double my growth, I want to double my valuation, everybody, I need twice as many leads and extra. They're all thinking linearly. Fundamentally, we pay tribute to these sentences, but we don't put them into action. We don't really turn them into action. This is what I'm trying to relay today. How would we turn these things into action? First here is understand this curvature and understand what this means. What does it physically mean? What is the origins of growth? Look, what you'll see here is if I have this delta X, and let's call this the lifetime value of a customer, for example, right? And what you see here, delta X, let's consider that from 3 years to 4 years or something like 12 months extra. You'll see I have the delta Y at the back end. If I extend the contract from 5 years to 6 years, which is the same delta X, you're going to see you have a significant bigger delta Y. That is referred to as nonlinearity. And the function of this nonlinearity, in this case, is a polynomial curve, or what you may refer to as an exponential curve. It creates that the small change has a varying impact, a disproportionate impact. That understanding is what this entire recurring revenue machinery runs on. This entire recurring revenue machine runs on the understanding that the same delta X delivers 2 different delta Ys. The same 12 months extensions deliver different kinds of revenue or profit in this case. The same delta X is moving from 12 meetings to 13 meetings has a significant decline in win rate. We're going to see all that happen. This fundamental understanding, it all comes down to this curve. Okay, that is the origins of growth. Multiple sources of revenue, impact-driven, following an exponential curve. Let's tackle the next topic. Let's bring it down to the revenue factory. What is the factory going to look like? I want you to understand that the moment in time we went from perpetual sales to revenue sales, we changed to a factory. It is 2000, whatever, 2018, in that time frame. I'm selling hardware equipment to satellite providers, and I'm talking about some of the biggest companies in the world. Right? DirecTV was a huge customer, Lacklustre Dish in North America, BBC in Europe, like every country. And I was flying around the world 200 days a year on the road a year for 20 years straight, right? And I was selling this all, like Australia, you name it, this equipment. How many accounts did we need? We had 80 customers a year. 80 customers a year that we had $100 million revenue stream on. 80. Now, when we moved to SaaS and we took the price down. Reason why that happened, well, we took the price down. Today, most companies will need in the order of magnitude of, I would say, 300 to 500 customers to be at about a $30 million if you're selling an enterprise solution in the price range of, let's say, $100 million. You're going to need like 100 customers, right? And if you're at 50 million, you're going to need 500 customers. And so you're measuring right now, we are measuring these deals in volumes of hundreds, if not thousands. And if we're going all the way to individual users, it could be hundreds of thousands. When you operate at such a high volume, you're operating a factory, people. You're not a Picasso painting, one individual painting a year, or 8 or 10, like we used to do in the old days with enterprise sales. You win 10 big deals a year, like each value at $7, $8 million. Voila, you got your $70, $80 million, right? And deals are cut that way. Now you got a deal like with $20,000 deals. Folks, we're not painting Picassos. We're simply redoing the living room. We're painting the window. We're painting the ceilings. We're painting the walls. We're a factory. We have become a factory that is run by the go-to-market team. The go-to-market team's responsibility in that factory is to make sure that factory runs. Now, what are the deliverables of that factory? If you think of it as a factory, what does it need to deliver? First of all, it needs to deliver growth, which we refer to as scalability. Do more, get more. Put more people working in the factory, get more revenue out of it, get more growth out of it. Second, it needs to be done efficiently. Second thing of a factory, make sure that it's done effectively and efficiently. Sustainable growth, cost. And then third, and this is a new term I want you all to get used to, this is the future where we're going over the next 2 years. Make sure that the quality is high. Durable growth. The difference here is I can win with ChatGPT. I can lower my cost and win more customers at a lower price. Therefore, I am more sustainable. But if I'm winning the wrong customers and they're going to churn in year 2 and 3, then I may be sustainable for the first 2 years, but after that, I'm going to burn down. What you see, for example, the application of both PLG and vertical SaaS is that the quality is high. What do I mean with quality? Quality, I mean with impact. As a factory, we don't have literally a quality, like glass bottle or a quality set-top box that falls out of it. Our quality is our ability to deliver high quality impact for our customers. So we measure that in impact, desirable outcomes, impact. If we deliver the right impact, then that customer will renew and that customer will become durable. That's the difference between scalable, which is primarily on growth, which is the past decade, sustainable, which we have moved to, which was delayed because of COVID, which then backlogged and fell on top of us, sustainable. And now where we're moving, durable, win the right customers, work with the right customers. Churning wrong customers, that's no problem. They're not the right customers. Churning is fine. We don't have to retain the wrong customers. But if you are not retaining the right customers, then you're not going to experience durable growth. Durable is really the term. And that means win the customers whose business we can impact. That is part of this factory. Where are we today with this? As my friend Stephen Notion, who I'm about to go hiking with at 11 o'clock this morning, from Notion said, like him and his company came out and pointed out that it's actually 2% is the current success rate. Of the 100 companies that receive $3 million in funding, only 2 get to 100 million. Only 2. Folks, it's actually less. It's 1.7, but I had no space on the slide to make it 1.7, so I've made it 2. 2%! Okay, think about this. 100 patients go into hospital, 2 survive. Okay, 100 people go into a car tire shop. Only 2 get the tires fixed. Okay, these 2 are, like all 100 companies are some of the smartest people in the world, funded by $3 million. You're gonna have a decent VC behind you, right? So we're gonna have a decent VC with some of the smartest people, and only 2% make it to 100. Now, of course, there's other ways of measuring success. I get that, but still, 2%, people. 2%. Think about it. We can do better than that. We can. Okay. Now, what are we doing today? Oops, too fast. What are we doing today? What we see today is that most companies in this particular point in time, in order to beat the odds, they have started to cost cut. And what they say is like, hey, I need to grow and I need to keep growing, but I need to do it at lower cost. Do more with less. You've heard it, you've seen it, and obviously we all question, folks, that is not a reality. You can't do more with less, right? It's not how, like how some of these things work. And so that is the current GTM focus, is do more with less. That is where we're at today. What I'm going to say is that we're going to have need a new focus. That new focus is grow at the same cost. So not do more with less, do more with the same. And the way we're going to achieve that is we're going to trigger that third impact, the third in that, deliver more to your customer. Be better at delivering. Stop focusing on that self-centered growth. Start focusing on the customer and let growth be the natural outcome of it. Make sure that you target the right customers, and you're going to see the right customers. That is what delivers bigger impact. That's where the factory is going to come from. Scalable, sustainable to durable. Durable tells us, make sure you win the right customers and achieve impact. If we go back and we see what we previously speak about by the origins of growth, the origins of growth say this was an exponential growth curve. Customers will renew. We have disproportionate impact. If we keep winning customers and we keep renewing them by delivering impact, you start to see it. This entire machine is designed this way. It works this way. It operates this way. Sometimes I compare it to, like, over the past 10 years, we've been driving this wonderful Ferrari that we had, or if you're Dutch, you're talking this wonderful Red Bull Formula One engine. Sorry, I'm going to lose 10% of you folks right now. Right? You're driving this wonderful Ferrari and you use it as a lawnmower. That's essentially what you've been doing. And that's fine. It got us here, the entire market. We need to get here, but we're here right now. You can't keep driving this Ferrari as a lawnmower. Let me explain. This topic, we're going into depth and we're going to talk about the machinery. How does this machinery work? First, many of you have seen this before, but just a brief update. This is the acquisition funnel, and the acquisition funnel is primarily focused on acquiring. Many of you have heard me talk about this before. If we keep using the marketing and sales funnel, that is primarily acquisition driven. We're forgetting all about what sits behind. This is one of the core reasons why we have problems today, because as management, we're not using anything more than the funnel. In today, you need to change your mindset inside the company. You need to look at the form of a bow tie. It may have different shapes for you. I'm not trying to sell you winning by design. We have surrendered this as under a Creative Commons license. You can use this. Please use this. We're not going to call you up on it to say, like, oh my God, like you owe us money because you used the bow tie. Folks, use it. It's free. It's provided to the community. Every time. You don't have to make it on every, but if you can mention winning by design, that would be fantastic. What is the key down here to this thing? The key is that I not only have a funnel to my acquisition part, but also I have a funnel to my retention and expansion part. Similar in depth, similar in detail, similar source. Not better than acquisition, not worse. Not better, not worse. The same level of focus. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look into each of these functions, and we're going to tune this engine. We're going to show you where the trend is going, what has happened, what math sits behind it, and how you can alter this. All this is it obeys to scientific principles the same way that building a 20-story building is calculated on the strength of the metal and the concrete and the sand foundation and whatnot can be calculated, right? Out of 1,000 out of 1,000 buildings that are being constructed need to be correct, right? We're building 100 buildings every year and only 2 survive, right? Think about that. I'm building 100 bridges, 98 crashing. There's only 2 bridges that make it, okay? You drive over, you have no idea. You're going to work for a company, could go, could not go. How did you decide? I don't know. It's a good CEO. Good CEOs fail too. Okay. So we're going to use scientific principles, the same scientific principles that build buildings, that will help software work very well, and so on. Again, a concept that many of you have heard before. I'm just bringing everybody up to the same speed down here before I go into depth about the current trends. What you'll see here is win rate is not the number of opportunities, it's the number of wins divided by opportunities. Win rate, that's technically correct. I'm not saying it's not correct, but win rate technically is, scientifically is, the conversion rate per meeting and the amount of meetings combined form the win rate. So every meeting needs to have a success or fail. And if you have enough meetings behind, that forms a win rate. So in this case, the win rate, and I assume in this case that the conversion rate per meeting is the same. It's not, but on average it is, right? But the conversion rate per meeting, let's say on average, is 90%. If I have 12 meetings, that gives me the enterprise win rate of about 30%. On average, 12 populated meetings. I may have hundreds of emails. I may have dozens of independent phone calls on top of that. I get that, but I have 12 meetings. Down here, I make a clear thumbs up and signal. This tells you what Udi was talking about with Gong is so important. These meetings are ultimately the most determining factor in go, no go. Hence, recording these meetings and analyzing them is super important, whether that is done by AI or by a VP of sales doing it via qualitative analysis. 90%, let me see if I can do this. I sometimes do this. Yes, Spotlight, and let me see if this 0.9 to the power of 12. Yeah, there it works. It does work. Okay, see that? And let's say it's 0.9. Oh, sorry, I typed 23. Let's not make that 23. Let's make that 12. There you go, 28.24%. I'm just 0.9, 90, like 0.9, 90%. I do that for 12 meetings in a row. Boom, 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 boom. Sequentially, I get a 30% win rate. Okay, and so what we now see that if I compare that to SMB, SMB closes differently. So SMB closes at a win rate on average of 72%. And in this case, so I'm going to do 0.72. Oh, not 73, 72. Do it to the power of 5. And let me see if I can drag it over a little bit. Come on. Yes. Drag it over a little bit. Okay. And so there you see that has a win rate of 18% or 19%. Okay. And close to 20%. Okay. And so what you'll see down here, oh, not too fast yet, is that if I have enterprise and SMB, enterprise meeting, 90% conversion rate on average times 12 meetings, like win rate versus SMB. This is the difference. This is the reason why it's hard to convert an SMB rep to an enterprise rep. There's a different win rate down here. Mind you, in SaaS, many of these have started to look alike. So in SaaS, it's very different. But if you talk to a deep enterprise sales professional, they go like, look, that's not 12. That may be 24 meetings. That may like it over 18 months, 24 months, right? Okay. What you'll see here is that I want you to think about this function down here. Win rates, conversion rate to the power of meetings. That essentially is an exponential function. When we know that and when we plot that out, it looks something like this. That means that when we at Winning by Design, we take in your data, we can create a mathematical formula that represents your win rate. In this case, you'll see win rate, that curve, that right? This is your enterprise. In this case, on this particular customer, who on average uses 12 meetings in order to close a deal, this curve looks like that. What we notice is that this customer was operating in 2021 at an average of a 28% win rate. And then 2022 came. And in 2022, that win rate went from 28% to 18%. And it has not let up since. Over the past 6 months, we have seen most companies that we're working with in the enterprise, where we're talking about $50, $100, $150, $200,000 sales, multiple decision makers involved, we've seen that the win rate has dropped significantly from 28% to 18%. Now, I want you to understand, why did that happen? Did the salespeople get worse? No, it's the same sales force. Okay, so what happened? I'm going to show you what happened. Because when everybody started cutting, we suddenly see that what was 12 meetings and turned into a 28% meeting, suddenly I needed more meetings. The CFO got involved. I needed an extra meeting. And so did I get to 40 meetings? No, 40 meetings dropped it to 23%. Did I get to 50 meetings? No, 50 meetings dropped it to 20%. Did I get to 60 meetings? No. On average, I needed a little over 60 meetings, right? And that dropped me to 80%. What you see here, the shift that was made between those two was the shift moving on average from 12 meetings to 16 meetings. It followed perfectly that curve, landing on 18%. Not only did that happen, we see in SMB, we see that it declined from 20% to 10%. This is the same. SMB went on average 5 meetings converting at 72%, went on average to 7 meetings converting at 72%. That brings you to 10%. It followed that curve. Mathematically, this follows it. How did lead development work? Lead development worked the same thing. What you see here, earlier we had SalesLoft speaking. What you see here is the curve that we saw in 2021. What you'll see is that curve in 2021, this is measured. First email, we're normalizing it against the first opening email. These are the numbers from SalesLoft. And SalesLoft presented these numbers, what their conversion rates were. In horizontally, we got the number of touches, email touches, right? So if you have a sequence with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you'll see it go down on the curve. You'll see how the response rate goes down. Do you recognize the curve? The dots are the data points I got from SalesLoft, right? Do you recognize the curve? It's exponential. Oh, polynomial. It's a polynomial curve that has an exponential feel to it, right? And guess where that curve has gone in 2023? Yes, all these have dropped significantly. Again, perfect exponential curve. It starts following it. It is normal. This is, of course, when the sample size is big enough. If you do this on 10 customers, it's going to be a little bit. But if you have 100, 200, 500 customers, you're going to see the same thing. This is how this machine works. Okay. Now, maybe does acquisition work differently than expansion? No. Retention and expansion work exactly the same. You may know this as NRR. What you'll see here is that the difference NRR curves that I'm demonstrating, right? You'll see this curve down here, this pink curve, that is NRR of 1.25. That means that every year I bring in 25% extra on my existing customers, my cohort, please. Always understand this is cohort. Well, cohort could be all your customers, but based on your cohort, you would see this 125% expansion. What we have seen, and David Spitz, a good friend of mine who I'm having coffee with later today, it's the Jacco thing today. Okay, and so what we see David Spitz down here, he just wrote this article on LinkedIn. Highly recommend that you follow David Spitz. And what you'll see down here is that he noted across, and what he stated in his article is that on average, the market experienced a 5% drop in NRR over the past month. And that is going to continue to happen. Why? As we fire more people. The world we live in of SaaS was a world that started with 10,000, with 1,000 people, 1,000 SaaS companies a year ago that is now 35,000 companies. Folks, we're living off selling to ourselves. And so when we're firing people all across in the SaaS industry, we're naturally going to get an NRR because we're naturally going to get fewer employees at 35,000 SaaS companies. Of course, there's many companies who are making it, doing better. That's not the point. That about 1/3 of the SaaS companies do utterly fine, but 70% of them are hurt. And they're seeing numbers like this, 5% going down. What does that mean, 5% going down? It essentially means that you go down from there, right? And what you'll see is that this curve has a significant bigger delta. You may think that an NRR from 5 points is not that much. Well, if you extrapolate that over the next X years, you're going to see that is huge. Every time we're dealing with an exponential curve, what we're going to see, small change, big impact. And this entire SaaS machinery, this entire machine is built on nothing but exponential curve that of each one impacting the next one, impacting the next one, impacting the next one, which is the reason why PLG has such an incredible growth curve in the early on, because it is amplifying. Why? Because PLG fundamentally is based on impact. If you get the impact you want, you're going to keep renewing. You're going to talk to other people about it. And as a result, it creates a closed loop. And that closed loop on that exponential goes as a whole goes up and accelerates and accelerates. Why? Multiple of these small improvements have huge impact, particularly when they're repeated in time, aka PLG, bringing in more customers, and particularly when they're repeated, in frequency, bringing in more customers, and typically when they're repeated in time, renew, expand, renew, every year, every month. That is how this machine works. The entire machinery works on exponential math. It's one gigantic exponential machine, one impacting the other. That is very different from a perpetual software engine. Now you know how the machine works. Let me present to you some of the field results we have seen. These are a little bit stressful, so get ready because they're stressful results about to see. We categorized in bottom performer, below normal and normal. And the reason why we can no longer talk about averages, because we will see that there's such a significant group of underperformers that is taking place, that the average by itself is going lower than what the historic average was. And so we're going to call this below normal and normal. What we see down here is that a bottom performer, that a below normal performer delivers about a 10%, 1.1x in ARR compared to the bottom performer. What is more telling is that the normal performer, over 80% on quota on average in sales, but the same performance down the line on CSMs, on lead development, and on setting up appointments and so on. 1.5x. 1.5x, the normal performer is exceeding the generation with the same amount of opportunities as the below normal performer. Okay? 1.5x, keep that in mind. The blue outperforms the white. We're doing the exact same thing. Why? The blue focuses on impact. When they sit on a call, when we analyze them to gone calls, they talk about impact to the customer, not the features and benefit. They actually can able and write in the CRM system what is the impact that the customer want out of this. Not what do they have budget. It's important, but you need to know is what does the customer intend to do with it. And the same way, CSMs, what do you intend to do with it and helping you accomplish that? If you focus on impact, we see a 1.53x in revenue. Now, the problem is that when you see how is this workforce divided, we're seeing that 28% of today's workforce either can't or won't. Not my topic to I am not an analyst. I do have a word with Simon Sinek one of these days because the things that he speaks about, I'm always been very sensitive to. But there's 28% that simply can't or won't. The quiet quitters fit into this group. I get that, all that term. But this is happening. 28% are simply not entering the data in their CRM, are testing on the test score, like at the lowest level that they can pass. That's what's happening at the red group. There's the 40% group in the middle that is, like it wants to but doesn't seem to can. And there's 27% that is performing over 80% on average. 4.4% is the top performers. This was measured about at close to 60,000 opportunities that we've run over the past 6 months. That means that the top performers are no longer 20%, they are 4.4%. And the bottom 10% has not been the bottom 10%, but the bottom 28%. That means when you combine red and white, that we got 68% of the company in today's world measured over the past 6 months, underperforming against quota. Can it be done? 27, if you add 24, 32% total says, yes, it can be done, but it's unable to be done. What is the difference in this? Well, before I go there, there's another trend that is currently happening that is very worrisome. That trend that is happening is that middle group, that swing group, if we could get that group up to the blue, the company that we're entering back in normal. What is happening, however, is that because companies are not taking any action on the red group, they're not letting go of the group, or like there's issues that the company again, I'm not corporate in that. There is a large group of the white trending downwards. When we hear this, right, we often hear this as saying is like, like they're not going to get fired, so why am I working so hard? And so this white group is becoming slowly starting to split out, and this 40% group is a problem. Now, what you'll see here, and I'll bring it back to the top, what you'll see here, that group, the red group, we are spending so much time in management focusing on that red group. Who needs to be let go? How do we get, folks, we spend too much time on that. What we need to start working on is we need to work on that white group, and we need to get that white group and that blue group. We need to start increasing performance. We cannot cost cut our way to growth. You cannot keep focused on cost cutting and cost cutting and cost cutting and expect growth will be the outcome of that. Eventually, you need to say, okay, done with the cost cutting. We need to start investing in those who can and those who want to, and move them up so we can create more top performers, so we can make more normal performers. And it's the middle 40% that is the swing factor. what we have seen, undeniably, what separates the 27% of the normal between the subgroup is what we have seen is that they are performing against process and they're executing as they're being asked to. What we are seeing is this shift from, I call it playground to factory. Playground, activity-driven, creativity-driven, high volume-based, to productivity-driven, factory, processes, execution, and the discipline. What we have found is that people love actually being asked to execute the process. We are coming from a world that, no, we don't want process and we want to be free and this like that. That is actually that lack of process and the lack of frameworks and the lack of proper repetition has caused this stress in the workforce. And by telling them, hey, look, do what, what has proven to work. And there's a saying I want you to remember. You can do it your way after you have proven that you can do it my way. Because my way as a manager coach has proven to work. You can do it your way after you have proven that you can do it my way. Okay. And if the company, if an employee, if you're doing what you're being told and you're hitting your volume metrics and it doesn't result in the success, what are you supposed to do? Like what? Literally, I executed the process. I followed my training. I did it right. Like, why am I being fired? Right? Absolutely honest and sincere response. But what is hard is if you do it your way, you're not following process, you're not disciplined. Having shown this on a number of occasions, right? Like I saw that Laura Guerrera, who recently posted this on behalf of a pavilion that happened in London. She said, like she wrote, I'll let you folks read this, but between her and Jeremy Donovan, this is the term right now. I love how Jeremy Donovan says it. It's not knowing what to do, it's doing what you know. We know nowadays how many more campaigns can we run? We know what works and what doesn't work. We have the data. Now let's go do it and execute it properly, right? Fantastic statement by Jeremy about Laura, how they summarize that. Those were some field results. And the field results are telling us, hey, look, if you focus on impact, you actually get the result that you wanted, 1.53x more. So why are you not focusing on impact, right? That 1/3 of that group, that 32% that did that, includes, we have words and we see on a number of occasions proven that those who execute actually have hit quota over the past quarter. They did. Stick to the process, stick to what we know that works, execute it. You hit your quota. And whether that quota is applied to acquisition, expansion, retention, right? I want to make sure when I speak about language and growth and stuff like that, I apply it to all groups in customer success. How are you going to deploy this? Okay, you're going to like, Jacco, I get this. This is fantastic. I'm motivated. I see it. I want that 1.5.3x. What do I need to do it? First and foremost, you got to keep it simple. I'm telling you here how the watch works, okay? How the entire watch works. But every day, every time I'm looking at the watch, I'm not trying to comprehend how the watch works. I just wanted to tell me time. So you got to keep it simple for your team. Keeping it simple means that you're asking them to tell you the time. You're not asking them to design a watch, right? That's what companies like Winning by Design do. We come in and we design the watch for you so that on the outlook, it looks simple. Keep it simple. Very important today. Keep it simple. In this case, we're picking a few key moments. What I want you to do, pick a few key moments across your customer journey. The blue are acquisition-based. The pink, in this case, are expansion or retention-based. Pick no more than 10. I would say 5 to 7. Pick one for each group. Pick a moment and pick a single thing at what they work on. A greater discovery call, a better onboarding experience, a better expansion call, a better QBR, EBR, whatever it is. Pick a moment. Just don't think about it too much. Pick a single moment. On that moment, train them how to do it. Analyze what is currently working, what is working, do more of what works, stop doing what doesn't work. Train them on doing that, 2-3 hours, not 8, not 16, not 20. Train them on, and then repetition, repetition, repetition. 4 weeks in a row, coach. Listen to your gong calls on that specific topic. Ask them to send snippets on only that topic. If we're going to talk about discovery call, we're going to diagnose an impact, then I only want to hear a 2-minute example of when the customer responded with the impact. That's it. I don't need to listen to the entire call. We're going to focus on that one skill. We call that the sprint. We're going to do that. We're going to repeat that sprint. Every 2 months, every 60 to 90 days, we're going to pick a new skill. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Remember what I said? This engine works on exponential growth curves and repetition and frequency. I don't need you to do it all right away, right? I need you to do it slightly better every 2, 3, 4 weeks. If you do that every 60 days, you're going to see compound impact. That's how these teams got so good. They made small changes. Do that. Rinse and repeat. Here are 7 of these moments that you can consider. Here are 7 things that you can do. I'll let you digest it. You screenshot this. Here are 7 moments. These are the common that we hear. 8. Learn about revenue architecture. Overcome indecision, which is JOLT. Reduce discounting. High impact. Most people discount is still way too much. Uncover impact. Hey, folks, impact is important. You better learn how to uncover it. Turn your managers into coaches. Key to everything. Can your managers coach this? Create expansion. We get a lot of requests to help our sellers to prospect, which is lead development, not lead generation. That brings us. I created this because I needed a little cheat sheet. So I created this own cheat sheet for me. Like, here's my cheat sheet, okay? Origins of growth. Remember the 3 sources of growth in this case: expansion, retention, and acquisition. Renewal is the biggest of them. Retention is the biggest of them. Okay, by far, and it's the reason why we have hypergrowth. All this is based on impact. Recurring revenue is a result of recurring impact. The revenue factory is moving from scalable to sustainable to durable. We're doing more and more durable growth. Why durable growth? Durable growth means we're focused on impact. This machine works non-linearly. Did I write that right? Non-linearity. Yes, non-linearity. It works that. And that means that every part of the engine impacts each other. The field results have shown those who can deliver 1.5x time. You got 40% of the largest sales teams. 40%. If you have 10 sellers, 4 of them can make that impact. 3 of them are already probably performing, and you got like about 3 at the bottom that you don't know what to do with. Deployment. If you do this, keep it simple. Focus on one skill. 60 to 90 days impact, which matches with a quarter. 60 days. First 2 weeks of the quarter, don't do too much. Last 2 weeks of the quarter, keep them focused on closing. I'm a big believer that you got to keep that focus in. It means that the middle 60 days, you can develop one skill. Start now. Don't wait. Do not wait. This is a race, and the race is going to be finished by the ones who started first. This compound impact means you start earlier, bigger impact. So you got to start. Folks, as I wrap it up down here, and as I bring it all home for you, if you see down here, SaaS doesn't only consist of cloud-based services with applications and recurring revenue. What we know is that the first companies who jumped in on the cloud are the most successful SaaS companies we know today. The second group who jumped in on the applications are the unicorns that we nowadays know as Adobe and whatnot. They all switched very quickly and they became big. The recurring revenue, those people who jumped on that via engines like PLG and stuff like that, they've become very successful. And similarly, those who figure out to adjust their go-to-market strategy and move from the playground to the factory, the first are going to be successful. And the race has already started. You've already seen Salesforce coming out with the Salesforce way, which is nothing more than the factory way. We've seen that DocuSign has come out with the DocuSign way. We've seen more and more companies are all coming out with the blah, blah, blah way. We call it the dot, dot way. And all these are turning their operations into factories where people need to execute proven processes in a disciplined way. Now, we sometimes think that it's a bad word, discipline. It's not. It's doing it in the right way.